sometimes I hear things that I, never would think of as motivation, if it's even just as simply as like, I want to go to jail again, I'm sick of living this life. Sometimes it's children, family members, sometimes it's pets. It really just depends on the person, and I think part of being an effective clinician and working with this population is to explore that through motivational interviewing or whatever we have to do to help people find what's going to work for them and find that motivation. I think that something really important to keep in mind that's often overlooked are the children that are involved with this, either, again, directly exposed to drugs or drug use, or who are living with a parent who is in recovery. There's so many studies that show that these kids have a harder time, and although they can be remarkably resilient, they need a lot of support. And so often when a parent is using drugs, using alcohol, we focus on their recovery and supporting them, which is really important. But at the same time, there's kids involved, and we have to support them as well because they're in this the same way.
I think that hope is an integral part of recovery. I think that the old school model, when the 12-step fellowships first started and we got this idea of letting people hit their bottom, there are two things that are different than they are today. One, you're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous started in Akron, Ohio with a bunch of salesmen with wives and cars and houses and kids. And so to lose all that might have been what it took to launch them into recovery. But nowadays we're looking at people with long-term trauma, sexual abuse. They've lived on the bottom forever. So the idea of magically hitting some kind of a bottom, projecting them into recovery is almost absurd to some of them. And Project Rise, which came out of Philadelphia with William White, really goes into detail on that. But if you can instill in them hope that life may be different someday, that they can live clean, that they can be a functioning part of society, I think that that's a much better motivator than the carrot is a better motivator than the stick. And then when you look at opioid use disorder, like the idea of saying, well, let's let them hit bottom, that could be death tomorrow. With fentanyl and all the issues that we have, someone can overdose and die. With alcoholism, which is where that model really came up, that's kind of a long-term chronic disease. It takes a while to kill you usually unless you're involved in an accident.
I think a lot of people speak to a strong support from family, whatever family looks like to them. That can be the true biological wives, mother, father, sister, brother. But I think also a lot of times people build up communities where they are and find that often the most successful people going through treatment and staying in recovery is strong support from their family, from recovery groups that they're a part of, whether that's Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, whatever that may look like. And I think that that's really been the most successful people I've seen as treatment, is a strong support from people in their lives.
This is a medical situation and not criminal, and so the last thing we want to do is for folks who are in recovery to have to always be reminded of what they had done, or just be a part of. We just want to embrace them in the community, and our motto is together we're better. So if we can get them engaged and let them know this is something we're all working together on.
We have done tremendous work in responding to this national epidemic, but I think we're at a point now where we need to look at the racial and ethnic piece of it and deal with our racism issues so that we ensure that everybody has equal access to the services available.
I've been fortunate enough to have went through a pretty strong ordeal in myself to understand the consequences. I had almost 2 years to think about the wrongs that I did and the damage that I did, and more so than myself, I don't want to put anybody else through the things that I put them through. I think this problem is something that's going to continue to grow. I think the only way of tackling it is through speaking to the youth and getting to them early, because the lifestyle and the habits that one chooses early on in their life, whether they choose to open this door or open Pandora's box, I think it starts at a young age. Had I had not had this morbid curiosity or opened that door, I don't know if I ever would have went down the path that I went. So I think it's important to get out and educate the youth. I think it starts there. I think once you're at an adult age, it's a different life. It's a different cycle that you get into. And I think it's much harder to stop. So I think it starts early on and getting that person to understand, what's in store if you do go down this path.
Hope is such a big thing. Addiction itself is so hopeless. And any way you can find hope, whether it be from a support system, whether it be from some sort of religion, a higher power, but there's hope, and it's key. There is help. There is help, and it comes in many different forms. And if anybody is struggling and they don't think they're getting it, or they can't understand why they can't get clean, don't stop trying. I've seen people go through years and years of trying and relapsing and just, hitting new bottoms, and then now they've got 10, 12, 15 years clean. So there's a hope shot.
Just know that you're not alone. You're not alone at all, and there's so many more people that are going through this than you think, and it is possible to get help.
You do tend at times to think you're the only one, that somehow it's different, and you're the only one that's going through this, and nobody's going to understand. And that's why when you're in the rooms and you hear everybody else talking, and you're like, yeah, that's my story. That's exactly what happened to me. It gets you there where you can then start saying, yeah, maybe these people can help me. And then after a while you learn that you can help yourself, and you learn to identify the triggers, because there are triggers. I can't say that I have urges anymore, but there are things that get me in a space where I know my old ways of thinking are coming back and I better do something about it. And whether it's talk to somebody, meditate, do some reading, there's things to do to get me out of that space. And it's a daily struggle. There is hope. It can be done. Being an addict isn't the end. If it's only the end if you choose it to be your end. You can survive it. Those first few months of recovery suck. Okay? You are feeling emotions that you didn't let yourself feel for as long as you were using. That's one of the reasons you were using, was to suppress all of those emotions, those feelings that are human. They're normal human emotions, but somehow you didn't want to feel them. So they start coming out, and you have to figure out how to manage that and how to face life sober. And it's not easy, but I look at my life now. I've got a beautiful wife, good job. I've been clean long enough that I've been able to build the relations back up that I ruined during my addiction, in most cases. And I came out the other side, and I'm happy, and I guess at least somewhat a fairly well-adjusted human being.
Yes, we do see clients that come back to us and see us, and we give them a chance, because I don't care if it's your second chance, your first try at this, or your 13th, 17th, 20th try, because that try might be the try that you get towards your recovery, and you get finally to the place that you want to be. Doesn't matter how many chances it takes, because everybody deserves chances to get their life back. It will get better. And if you seek the help and you try to get help from somebody and you get connected to a place, give it a try, give it your whole heart, and just try your best, and really know that even though today might not be a good day, tomorrow might be a way better day for you, and that it'll only get better from here.
I think it's important that we all talk. I think things like this, it's good. To be real, to be honest, to not put any kind of a spin. Nobody's getting anything from this. We're all people and we're all humans. I don't know anyone who hasn't either been affected directly by addiction or who doesn't love someone or know someone who hasn't been affected. So it is in our backyard. So that not in our backyard mentality, it needs to stop. We need to understand that we're all human, and the behaviors that you see, I think that people have really also sensationalized, on TV. Well, the drug addict did this or the drug addict did that. First of all, let's not talk about people as being drug addicts. Let's talk about people with an addiction. We're all people first. It's people first language is super important. You're a person with a disability. You're a person with a habit that you really are not super proud of, but you're working hard. So I think if we start looking at people as people, and they have people with fill in the blank, it might humanize the situation a little bit more. There's this us versus them mentality that it would be really nice if we could bridge that gap with some education and this real talk.
What we have to realize is most of our first-time users are addictions, and that start from the misuse or overuse of opioids. And it's mostly from, like, if I get injured and I have extra prescriptions in my house, and then a friend gets injured, I just give it to them. Or they just say, hey, I need this, they give it to them. So what we need to focus on is when you're done with the medicine, just disposing of it through either drug take-back boxes. The Griffith Police Department, we're getting ready to roll out the Terra bags. It holds up to, I think, 40 opioid pills, 4 ounces of liquid, and 4 fentanyl patches. You add water into it, you shake it up, and you throw it away. Mostly all the departments around here have the drug take-back boxes. You just walk in, you throw it in, you walk out, no questions asked.
Most of the time it's a good support system. It's best when a family and a group of friends that's outside of their drug circle still believes in that person and hopes that someday they'll, find a healthy lifestyle again.
I'm a father of 3 children. My oldest is 19, my middle child is just about to turn 14, and my youngest just turned 8. And so my wife and I both have been firefighter paramedics, and so we have probably different discussions than I think the regular public does. But one of the things, as we have been raising our children, that we had to decide early on was that because this can happen to anyone, it's not reflective of the parents, it's not reflective of the community. Valparaiso, for example, where I've lived since 1993, is a wonderful community. We have a problem. So one of the things we had to talk about as parents is knowing the relapse rate, knowing all the issues that come with trying to help someone get clean, how far would we go? And we had to make the decision as parents that if one of our children found themselves in that spot, we would fight. We would fight for them until there was no more fight to carry on. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases with addiction, that sometimes means someone has died. I don't want that for anyone. I definitely wouldn't want that for my own children. So we decided we would fight, and literally, again, we're paramedics, so we're in the worst case scenario business, and that included if we had to uproot and move away from this area, somewhere where we knew no one, the child knew no one, and completely start over, we would do that. The different rehabs, whatever it took. That's not easy, and that's not a solution that sometimes is even possible for people. So, I guess what I would offer as a closing thought from myself is just the fight is worth it. Again, if we had a crowd of people in this room and I asked how many of you have been affected by addiction, whether family, friends, whatever, my own hand would go up. I have an aunt, she's dead now, but her entire life she struggled with addiction. Her death came earlier than it needed to, and it was a direct result of, in her case, it wasn't heroin, it wasn't meth, it was prescription drugs. And she was never able to completely, get off those and stay clean, and it affected her longevity of life. She lost a lot of good quality years. She was a great person. And I think, but she suffered from a disease. And I think that that's something, when we have discussions about these folks, we need to remember the human side. They are someone's child or parent or aunt or uncle or grandparent. And as a society, we need to do everything we can to fight the good fight and try to help them be part of the fight to get themselves clean and enjoy a longer, better quality of life.
It's amazing to see how many people in our community that really care about trying to help these people. And, and some people have lost their family members, and that's why they're, doing this and that in our community. And I think it's really eye-opening how, if you really want to stop, there are places, I know that there's at least 3 or 4 right off the top of my head in Chesterton and Valpo, people that, maybe used to work at a church, they're now doing this, and people that are raising money to try to help, there's one place in Chesterton, I can't remember the name of it, but, they focus on, hobbies, and getting them painting or into music again. And I think that's so important, besides just I want to get high, and dealing with that maybe medically, through Porter Stark or through counseling. I also think it's great to start back up things that you enjoy. What's the phrase, idle hands or the devil's playground or something like that. If we can keep them busy and let them find that love that they once had, I think it's great.
I would say getting involved in programs, Narcotics Anonymous, and if you don't have someone to talk to, get online and someone's willing to listen. Asking for help is probably the best thing. Not talking about it and just letting your addiction consume you is the worst option for you. And if you're a family member and your loved one's going through addiction, get them help. Don't ignore it. Don't act as if it's not there. Don't let them leave without knowing where they're going, because that might be the last time you see them.